we've been evolving our point of view on ether. When we started our analysis, we were pretty much, and this was with Chris, Bitcoin was what we needed to understand first, but we were keeping our eye on all of the other assets, and we stuck pretty closely to the thesis, the FAT protocol thesis that Chris's partner Joel Monegro came up with at Union Square Ventures, which says that the value accrual will take place more at the currency level. And we believe there would be only a few currencies in the world, much like there are today. We thought Bitcoin would be the reserve currency, and we were looking for the other currencies. And Ether was showing up as a very strong second.
Much of this year's crypto price surge that's seen the combined crypto market soar from around $700 billion to over $2.1 trillion is due to rallies in Ethereum and its many rivals that are jostling for market share. Ethereum is seeing an explosion in developer activity thanks to NFTs and DeFi, Wood said, referring to the digital collectible non-fungible token craze and an explosion in crypto-based decentralized finance designed to recreate lending and interest without the need for banks.
Ethereum is going to absolutely explode and make more millionaires than any coin over the next bull run. It's time to wake up. Bitcoin maximalists are dead. Bitcoin was up 28-3 and it's blown the lead. ETH is the best investment of 2020 and will be the best investment of 2021, at least until it hits one key price point, which I'm going to show you later today. But the question remains, when will Ethereum hit new all-time highs? And by the time the dust settles, where will the price of Ethereum peak at? The Ethereum potential is so high because of the power of Bitcoin scarcity. Like, Ethereum's utility is great, but right now it's all about the transformation of Ethereum into its own store of value, the way that Bitcoin did.
5,000, 5 to 10 feels like a reasonable range towards year end. And I guess if we're currently at Ethereum's maybe 50% market cap of Bitcoin, and we think Bitcoin's a 10x from here, I see no reason to believe that Ethereum isn't at least a 10x sort of lockstep.
Right.
And maybe, quite frankly, a lot more, to my previous comments about how do you put a bound on this type of innovation and creativity? You really can't. So there's a psychology here. Like, I remember when Bitcoin broke 50,000, it was like hovering at like 48, 49, and we're humans, right? So there's psychology. I think if Ether breaks 5,000, it just feels psychologically like a really interesting inflection point.
People like round numbers.
Yeah, people like round numbers. Then at 10,000, people's heads are going to explode.
Yeah.
So look, we love both these projects. They're incredible, and I think that they'll probably move lockstep in many ways. But right now, the focus has been on Ether. It's super hot, and you could argue that it was not there in large part because people were really focusing on Bitcoin during the early half of the pandemic and inflation. And I think that will come back, and it will just sort of go between the two.
So the Ethereum price predictions for this market cycle are all over the place. Bloomberg Crypto is calling for $10,500 per Ether. Former Goldman Sachs executive Raul Paul is calling for $20,000 per Ether. And then if you look around on YouTube, people are saying like $80,000 plus. So who's right? Well, nobody knows for sure what the price of Ether is going to be by any specific date. What you have to understand is all about probability, right? What's likely to happen? And, well, how can you determine what's likely to happen? Some scenarios more than others. Well, when someone tries to predict the price of Ether, you should ask them why they think that. And if they give you a really compelling answer, then it can greatly increase the chances that they're right, or that their prediction's close to what's actually going to happen. And so I want to examine this prediction today on Ethereum hitting $20,000 per Ether this market cycle, because I think there's a really strong thesis behind this prediction. So let's start off with Raul Paul, who's the mastermind behind this prediction, in case you're not familiar with who he is. So he's a former Goldman Sachs executive. He's the CEO and co-founder of Real Vision, and he's just an incredibly sharp global macro investor who I've been following for quite some time now. So, if you're watching this video or anybody connected to you is, I would love to have you as a guest on this channel. My contact info is down below. That would totally make my year. But in addition to these really impressive titles, he also has an incredible track record of predicting ETH's moves over the past year at the beginning of this bull cycle. So I was following along with these as I was, accumulating Ether all throughout this phase, some even down in the $100 range. So you can check these out if you want to see more of his track record. But I want to talk about his specific thesis for why Ethereum could hit $20,000 this cycle. So his thesis hinges on the idea of where Ethereum's value comes from. And that's critical because people get really confused on how you can even value cryptocurrencies in the first place. Like, they don't work like stocks, they don't work like regular currencies or commodities. So he would argue that Ethereum and Bitcoin both are valued in the same way, that the value of the currency itself is actually dependent upon the size of the network, or in other words, the number of people who actively use it. So in his thesis, he talks about Metcalfe's law, which is an idea that was really popular during the dot-com.
I absolutely can see that. Especially since monetary policies around the world have pretty much become unhinged. And, talk about trust. I think there's more trust in this ecosystem, in the way you've defined it, risk minimized, than there might be in the traditional world. As if we're right, there's going to be a lot of creative destruction and counterparty risk. And these banks are going to be losing share to the crypto world. And I want to get back to that in a moment because you seem so surprised. And I think it's so obvious, but now I realize what the disconnect is there. But yes, absolutely, I can. And if I could say something, I learned an important lesson it was the currency crisis, the Asian currency crisis in the 90s, 97, I think it was. And the Thai baht devalued, and nobody thought anything of it. Thailand was, hardly measurable out there, but it ricocheted. There was an Asian crisis that took place, domino effect. And so we began to ask companies like Boeing at the time, what's your exposure to Asia? It seems as though something's unraveling there. And they'd say, nothing, not even 5%. Well, what they didn't say is it might have been 4% of their sales, but it was more than 100% of their growth. And so when Asia went down, Boeing's earnings imploded in a way that most people couldn't understand, because they said, wait a minute, they told us it was only 5%. Yes, but they didn't say what percent of the growth it was. And I think we're talking about something equivalent here. And so, yes, the banks are onto this.
More than $1 billion worth of Ethereum has now been burned since the inception of network upgrade EIP 1559. Amid increased demand for the asset and rising competition from rival Layer 1 blockchains. According to data from ETHBurned and Ultrasound Money, Ethereum is being burned at an incredible rate following the EIP 1559 upgrade. The data shows that close to 298,000 ETH has been burned, which totals more than $1 billion at its current price of $3,412.